DINOWRESTLER PANKROTOPS is arguably one of the most surprising staple cards that, even though it eventually went to more of a side deck staple option, no one can contest the fact that it definitely is a good card. So much so, in fact, that recently on the last ban list in January of 2020, Konami actually limited the card to 1 copy per deck. Now, with the most latest set release being Ignition Assault, we see a new card emerge that honestly parallels a lot of the things that PANKROTOPS did that made it such a good card. Today, I want to discuss the card known as Ancient Warrior's Loyal Guan, or for the sake of shortening it a little bit, we'll be just calling him Guan for the rest of this video. Because a lot of people have been saying this card is the new PANKROTOPS. And to be honest, when you look at the similarities and differences, we can kind of determine how true that really is. I'm JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you like content like this, or if you like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or helping out a small channel, make sure to subscribe, and let's jump right into this. The basic similarities both Guan and PANKROTOPS have together that makes them worth talking about in comparison to each other is the fact that they are both level 7, they both special summon themselves from the hand, and they both destroy something. Now, of course, the way they do this is different depending on which cards you look at. Let's first talk about the summoning requirements. So for PANKROTOPS, all you need is to have less monsters on your side of the field than your opponent has on their side of the field. So whether you have 4 monsters and your opponent has 5, whether you have 0 monsters and your opponent has 1 or more, or any combination of that, as long as your opponent has at least 1 more monster on their side of the field, you can special summon PANKROTOPS from your hand for free. This is objectively better than Guan's case because Guan, you must not control any monsters on your side of the field in order to bring him out, but your opponent has to control at least 1 monster. This also goes further against itself for the fact that in order to use Guan's second effect, which is his popping effect or destroying a monster on the field, you need your opponent to still have more monsters on their side of the field than you do. So they must start with 2 monsters at least, and you must start with 0. So basically, PANKROTOPS, your opponent has to have 1 more monster than you, whereas Guan has to have 2 more monsters than you, and you can't control any monsters in order to bring him out. Of course, the obvious bad things about this is the fact that you never want to truly rely on your opponent for anything in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And you want to make as many of your cards as self-sufficient as possible. Both of these cards do rely on your opponent to have a board on the field. The difference between the two is a situation in which your opponent has any amount of more monsters than you do on the field seems to come up much more frequently than your opponent having at least 2 monsters basically and you having no monsters. Therefore, whereas PANKROTOPS would be a good top deck at any moment really in a game, Guan seems to be very much for either your first hand going second, or if your opponent completely wipes your board, and most of the time if that's the case, Guan may not be enough to actually bring you back into the game. Now let's move on to the pop or the destruction effect of both of these monsters. PANKROTOPS has you simply tribute a DINOWRESTLER on your side of the field, which 99% of the time, especially if you aren't playing a dedicated DINOWRESTLER deck, you will choose PANKROTOPS himself. You tribute him and you can destroy 1 card on your opponent's side of the field. This is good because whether it is spell and trap removal or monster removal, PANKROTOPS is just a good card in order to remove something on the field. Guan, on the other hand, you must require your opponent to have more monsters on their side of the field than you have on your side of the field, and then you can destroy 1 monster on their side of the field. This is interesting because unlike PANKROTOPS, where it is quite a utility card where you can destroy anything you need on your opponent's side of the field, Guan is limited to just destroying monster cards, which is definitely a big difference. The good side to Guan, and honestly one of the best optimal things about Guan over PANKROTOPS, is the fact that Guan stays on the field after it uses its pop effect, whereas PANKROTOPS, you must get rid of PANKROTOPS in order to destroy something. This difference is actually one of the main differences in my opinion that really sways which one is better than the other, for the fact that in many combo decks, each card in the deck is specifically used to further advance a combo. There are some decisions of whether or not to put in your side deck some spell and trap removal or something of that nature, but for the most part, in dedicated combo decks, PANKROTOPS was good because it was able to destroy a monster, a spell, or a trap, or it could even be used as a free body on the field in order to link away into further plays. This is another example as to why Lightning Storm is so good right now, because even though it has some restrictions on it, it is arguably very powerful because its utility allows you to destroy monsters or spell and traps. Additionally, that is also why cards such as Nightmare Phoenix are a good staple card in the extra deck for most decks that can link summon at all, for the fact that you don't have to run a specific card just to destroy spell and traps. You can have it in the extra deck to bring out whenever. Whereas PANKROTOPS, even though it is specific for spells and traps, it can also, like I said, be used as monsters or a body on board. So its multi-use allows it to take up one of the few precious spots in a combo deck that are open for some playability or messing around with what ratios to put in the deck. Guan, on the other hand, destroying just monsters obviously means it's much less versatile. Another issue with Guan is the fact that honestly many combo decks are so battle oriented that sometimes you don't really have to destroy a monster on the field, especially when a lot of monsters in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or spells and traps for that matter negate effects, so an effect just to destroy a monster on the field sometimes isn't as good as simply running over a monster on the field. An interesting interaction with Guan that I actually recently saw someone mention on Facebook that I thought was actually quite clever is the fact that since Guan stays on the field, it can out an Apollousa technically, because it can use its effect to pop the Apollousa, and then the Apollousa can use its effect to negate the Guan's destruction effect, but Guan isn't destroyed by that effect, so then Guan in the battle phase just attacks over the Apollousa. So in a way, it can get over some problems, and additionally, if you're not in that specific scenario or you want to go into a different direction of cards, it can be used as a body on the board, as well as it can pop something on the field. So that's kind of a dual use for Guan, even though it's less versatile as a whole. Another important thing to consider when seeing if Guan is as good as PANKROTOPS, though less important than the other things previously discussed, is the simple fact of searchability of these cards. Now, for the most part, unless you're running a dedicated DINOWRESTLER deck or a dedicated Ancient Warriors deck, you may not want to search these cards out specifically for the fact that they're more technical options you can add to the deck, and if you draw them during your combos or anything, they can help you out further your plays. PANKROTOPS, there has been some combos in the past where you use Foolish Burial Goods to send World Dino Wrestling to the graveyard, and then you remove from play the World Dino Wrestling and use that card's effect in order to, I believe, special summon PANKROTOPS out from your deck to the field, or add it to your hand. I can't remember which one, to be honest. But for the most part, for Guan, all you simply need to do to search it is use Fire Formation Tenki. The issue with running extra cards just to search these guys, unless you're running a DINOWRESTLER deck or you're running a deck that already uses Fire Formation Tenki, is the simple fact that these cards usually aren't worth the extra slots in the deck just to bring them out, because they don't do that much for your deck. They only supplement as opposed to being an end goal of sorts. Finally, I want to talk about something that's the ratios. Guan, you definitely want to play 3 of or none of, in my personal opinion, for the fact that unless, like I mentioned earlier, you use a card like Tenki in a deck that is already using Tenki, you want to see Guan in your opening hand if you're going second, because anytime after that, you'll have to rely on your opponent destroying all of your monsters in order to use Guan the most effectively. PANKROTOPS being limited to 1 is honestly, in my personal opinion, the only reason we are even considering Guan in the Yu-Gi-Oh community at all to be potentially the next PANKROTOPS. Now, I know the biggest issue with Guan being the next PANKROTOPS is the fact that it is not as strong, as versatile, and honestly just not as good as PANKROTOPS. It has a harder summoning restriction, it has less targets to pop, and ultimately it even has less attack by 100 points. But in all honesty, the fact that PANKROTOPS is limited is the reason why Guan is good. Is Guan the next PANKROTOPS? Like I said earlier in the video, PANKROTOPS was at one point a staple in almost any deck, and then it eventually went to the side deck, but it was in a lot of side decks until it went to limited. Now, even looking at the most recent deck lists that play PANKROTOPS, they sometimes main deck it even now at the 1 copy because it is such a versatile and good card. The only way to tell if Guan really is the next PANKROTOPS is simply by waiting. We don't have enough deck lists yet that really show Guan being used optimally, but on paper and through testing of individuals, we can determine whether or not Guan is the next PANKROTOPS. I know you're probably watching this video and thinking I have the answer whether or not definitively Guan is the next PANKROTOPS, it is the next semi to even staple card in the deck, but honestly, time will tell. But personally, all I can say for certain is Guan should definitely be on your radar and you should pick them up now rather than later. Speaking of picking them up now rather than later, if you check the link in the description below, I have a link to purchase them on TCG Player. Full disclosure, that is my TCG Player link, so I will get some compensation from that at no cost to you. So if watching this video specifically made you finally decide to pick up Guan, do me a favor since I potentially did you a favor by bringing this to your attention. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh! And be sure to subscribe. And I love you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. See ya!